here with our friend, the sir, the guy, Dr. Burgess, who will answer all of our questions about the new unknown disease, Ebola. Tell us, Dr. Burgess, what is Ebola?
It is both the name of a virus as well as the name of a disease caused by that virus. The name Ebola itself actually came from a small river in the country formerly known as Zaire, which is now the Democratic Republic of the Congo. That was the place where the first Ebola infection was ever detected.
Doctor, tell us, how can we contract this deadly disease?
The most common way to get Ebola is to get exposed to body fluids from someone who's previously been infected. And the most efficient way for that virus to enter into us is to come into our own mucosal tissues. In other words, if it comes in through your nose or through your mouth, or if you get exposed to the eye, any place where you have these so-called mucous membranes, that's where you get exposed to Ebola most frequently, if someone has that. Now, with that said, if you have an open cut on your hand and you get exposed to someone's blood, that's another way to get infected. But we tend to, commonly we don't have cuts, open cuts or sores, and so it's thought that exposure to the mucous membranes is the most effective way. Sexual transmission of Ebola has also been shown to occur because we have mucous membranes that are associated with sexual activity as well.
Doctor, we know that the disease is deadly, but we don't know the primary symptoms. Can you mention them?
As people start to develop a fever, and of course that's not specific to Ebola, that could happen with lots of different types of infections. Other symptoms you start to develop are muscle aches and pains, headache. You can also develop, malaise, so people vomit or have diarrhea. Those are some of the symptoms that aren't very specific to Ebola at all.
Lastly, and to end this interview, we have one question from one of our followers from Twitter.
With this deadly disease, do I have to take refuge in my house and buy weapons? Because I will.
The thing we have to remember about Ebola is it is still a very rare virus to contract in humans. It's a very rare disease. The reason why I mention this is we have over 30 million people around the world who are infected with HIV, and many of them are developing AIDS. And every day we lose about 4,400 AIDS patients who die from AIDS every day. The total number of people that have ever died of Ebola, as far as we know, where we've actually diagnosed them to have Ebola, is only 7,000 to 8,000 people ever. So that's only about 2 days worth of people dying of AIDS. And we have about 1/4 to 500,000 people that die of influenza every year. And in most cases, they're not getting the vaccine or they don't have access to get the vaccine. So this is a relatively small player, but it's getting a lot of publicity right now because when people die of Ebola, in most cases they're dying because they're bleeding all over. They're bleeding from the eyes and the mouth, and they have bloody stools and everything. And so it's just a terrible way to die. But in reality, we're kind of blowing all of this out of proportion. It's not very transmissible from human to human.
Well, it seems that Ebola, it's just another brick in the wall. So let's go back to the studio.